Let's start with, can you tell us a little bit about your life story? Where does Mari come from?
Wow. So I actually, I am from the Central Valley. I grew up in Visalia. At the age of 4, I migrated with my younger siblings. We were escorted, smuggled into the country. Since I was 4, and I come from a migrant working family. My parents are farm workers. I joined, them in the fields, and that is how we were able to survive. Because we recognize that it requires like a whole family unit in order to kind of somehow, survive in this country, with the income and, wages that we get. But yeah.
And okay, so you mentioned your parents were farm workers. Did this maybe get you involved in activism, or how did you first get involved in?
So the thing about it is, like, my father, even though my parents were undocumented, they were organizers.
Oh, okay.
So they actually were very much involved with the UFW. My father's cousin, Genaro, was a very good friend of Cesar Chavez. So, and this is when they were organizing in Chowchilla, I think. So Cesar Chavez would come to the house for breakfast, and my dad, who had just arrived from Mexico, would join in the conversations that Cesar would have with, my dad's uncle Genaro, when he lived in Indio. So that was one of the things that, so we grew up, our vacations consisted of going to a marcha or to a huelga. I remember we had an old station wagon, and the one that the seats from the back just kind of, fold. And my mom would make like a makeshift bed, with cobijas, and in the middle of the night, or early in the morning, my dad would just kind of, pull us out of the bed, and just kind of like, we would all line up and sleep in the back, and we would just wake up in the middle of a marcha, of a strike. I remember like many times hearing Dolores Huerta with the mic, si se puede, mi gente. And we actually have video of our, growing up with that. So we all participated. I'm one of 8. I'm the oldest. The youngest one we're like a 16-year difference, and all of us have been, participating with our parents in that. So my dad, his role was, his name is not known. Like many farm workers, their names are not known. But my dad, what he did, is that he organized the fields. He literally, like, when he was in, like, he, especially like during like the marchas, he would go in before and try to get people out to come and join La Marcha. So seeing that as a child, and then in understanding the power of it, so it was, when I was about 14 years old that I led my own strike. I recognized that at being a freshman in high school, and I was doing like 2nd grade reading, I just knew that I was not going to be able to, to fulfill what was going to be my promise. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I, being around and hearing that, que si se puede, everything is possible. I didn't know what it was possible, but I knew that I could do, that I needed to do better for myself. So I went, it was during the summer, we were harvesting the tomato as a family, and my younger sibling was playing under the shade, and my older siblings and I were, joining our parents harvesting the tomato. and then I went into a 5-day strike. So basically I would work because the family needed the income, but I refused to drink water and I refused to eat.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the second day that, my parents noticed that, oh, she's not eating. Oh, she's not drinking, and then so they approached me and I says, well, I'm on strike. I want to go to school. I want to go to school year round, so I began to negotiate, listening to what Dolores and so I said, I want something for me better than this.
Yeah.
And I cannot do it if I'm doing second grade reading. I need to do school year round.
Yeah.
So what I offered in my negotiation is that I would babysit my younger siblings when I was not in school. And so that led my path to going to school year round and for me to go to college to UC Davis. And I'm the oldest of 8 and all my younger siblings have gone to college.
Wow.
4 to Davis, including myself. And then USC, we also had, Fresno State, yeah. And so there's, yeah, so that was my how I was introduced to organizing. Seeing my parents and my work has been influenced by that. I recognize the opportunity that I was gifted, that not everybody was given this opportunity. And I still remember, when I was accepted to UC Davis, I applied to all. I got to tell you that the only university that didn't took me in was Cal. But yeah, the other ones, they accepted me, and even Harvard. But I wanted to be, I wanted to thrive, and I just knew that I couldn't be far from family. But yeah, so that is how I was introduced. And just hearing our parents and being exposed to the culture and knowing what is possible when a community comes together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. May I ask a question? What you say is really very interesting. You named your uncle Genaro. And but also it's very amazing that you get this message that sí se puede, and you get in your own strike. But the way that you said it, it says 2 days without eating, drinking water, and voila, everything was fine. And I wonder if you can say, tell the story, because your parent at the beginning say yes or said no, how was it? Tell the anecdotic part in this story.
Yes. So, during this time, there's a person that came to my life. His name is Dr. Juan Lopez. He was a counselor, and he was a counselor during doing high school students. I was in middle school, and my teacher Palomo mentioned my name. So Dr. Juan Lopez would come to the middle school, and whenever there was activities like visiting colleges, universities, he would pull me out of middle school so that I can participate. So not only did he showed me that, what is possible, but he also told my parents. So my parents, they were introduced early on. At this point, my parents envisioned that me graduating from high school would have been like, I succeeded, I got my education, and they didn't think beyond that. They didn't think it was possible, or didn't even, but it took someone, my migrant ed counselor to let them know that more can be possible. So when I did my strike, it was aligned during the same period of time. So my parents actually did a tour. Dr. Lopez took my parents, it was actually supposed to be like a group of parents. but my parents were the only ones that showed up. So this tour included going to Berkeley, going to Davis, Santa Cruz, and going to San Francisco University, and my parents were it. So everywhere they went, they were treated like VIP because they were expecting a bigger crowd, but only my two parents showed up. And they got the one-on-one. They got to meet students who look like me, who come from families like ours, talk to them about college. So so I think that and I think that they kind of knew also that I was very serious. I was prepared to take my strike until I got what I wanted. I mean, we were talking about very high weather, like temperatures, not drinking, not eating, and I'm just a kid, and I already had gone to 2.5 days without eating anything or drinking. And so they finally said okay, but I had to honor my agreement. So I babysat, and I got up in the morning and prepared the lunches, the food for the family to go. That's and after that, every summer I was allowed to go to school, so that I was able to graduate like with honors, with AP classes in literature, which was like for me like huge, history and the sciences and so forth. But literally, like, it took my parents being exposed to the movement, and then having people in the education system that facilitated it, because otherwise my parents would have been stuck, right? They wouldn't know where to send me or how to support me. But the school, in this case, they had a migrant aid program that was instrumental. So when I graduated from high school, there was a group of my friends. There was a group of maybe like the highest group of Mexicano youth going to college at that time, coming from Camp Linnell, coming from Woodville, from Ivanhoe. But we were all friends, and so we all came to Davis and we caravan. My parents led the way. It was like 5 vehicles, following each other because we didn't know. And and my parents, since they already had visited one of the, they felt like they knew a little bit better, and people, but so I still remember that day even now, us young folk, scared but believing in something bigger, and gathering in the parking lot, and just carpooling, supporting each other through this process, and the parents supporting each other as well. It was huge. I'm still friends with them, even now. And we talk about that moment because that was life-changing. It took a lot of things. It took about a community being mobilized and understanding the power que si se puede. It took about educational system believing and investing on youth, willing not only to tell the youth that they could, but also educate the parents, and we haven't seen that. I haven't seen that, working with the communities that I am at, working with Lupus Promise youth. My youth are being told that the most they should inspire is to be a forklift driver or a cashier. And that breaks my heart. And so I knew that what was gifted to me, came from hard work. But I also know that in this journey, I did not do it alone, that there was people along the way who paved the way for me, that believed in me, and I made a promise to myself, when I got, I did not get a letter from the universities, from the first one that I heard from was for Davis, but I didn't get a letter saying congratulations or anything like that. I got a call because they already envisioned that I already had received this and I hadn't. And I remember, the phone being passed to me and being told, so when are you coming to Davis? And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? And then realizing that I've been accepted. So somebody actually told me, like, congratulations, And I remember my dad, he, grabbed me, pulled me on top of his shoulders, carried me outside, screaming, yeah, like, mi hija va a la universidad with tears. It was just like,
Qué momento más lindo.
it was, And that's when I realized that it took a village to put me there. And I made the commitment that I'm going to do everything I can to make room to pave the way for other youth to believe in them, even when they don't believe in themselves, even when their family don't believe in them, and to provide the resources so that they can achieve that, their promise,
So beautiful, so beautiful. And now,
doing a great job at it.
sí, sorry, Anaís, pero a la otra parte de la pregunta era acerca de Genaro. Entonces, tu tío Genaro.
El tío de mi papá es primo de mi papá. Yeah, so él vivía en Indio, and he was very good friends, with Cesar. And my dad would tell us, like, Cesar would come in the morning for breakfast and have cafe with mi tío Genaro on the kitchen table, and that they would talk,
Pero está vivo, tu tío Genaro.
Sí.
Sí está vivo.
Creo que no, pero creo que sus hijos aún viven. Yeah.
You mentioned your father's name's not very known. What's his name?
José Hernández Pérez.
Hernández Perez. And your mother's?
Paulita Ruiz. Yeah.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about your mentors? You certainly have had a lot of mentors. Maybe your uncle Genaro, your parents. You also touched upon Dolores Huerta, but were there any other mentors, any organizations, any movements that also inspired you?
What I found, growing up, the farm worker movement was a motivator. Like literally, like I said, vacations revolve about going to a strike or a marcha, to the point that when I went to Davis, I convinced my roommate to go on strike with me at the Safeway, or actually I think it was Albertsons and Davis. We were the only two, but we were doing a strike on the grape, but it influenced me. My parents, have been a tremendous sense of, shining light, that kind of has guided my work. Yeah. I had teachers along the way that pushed me, and I actually had people who put me down that also have influenced my work. My experience early on going to Davis was not a very smooth one. So there was a moment where I thought that I was going to drop out, like early on, because I was struggling in one of my classes. I didn't know that I was dyslexic. I didn't know that I have a learning disability. It was not something that anybody or my parents or anybody thought that I should be tested on. But I was struggling when I'm one of in a class of 50, 100 people or more. And I was struggling. So I remember being pulled aside by one of the teachers, and telling me that she felt sorry for me, that I reminded her of a wounded dog. And I just wow, it was just so powerful, those comments, because my journey has been one full of pride of, and to be in this space that I'm trying to fit in and be described as that, I just felt so unwanted, so not appreciated or seen. So I remembered right after that comment, I left the class. She said it in front of the class. And I go into the Learning Skills Center, and I run into Dr. Hudson Ortiz. I still remember his name. I only met him the one day. And he saw me, maybe he saw something in my expression, but he stopped and he says, he asked me what was going on. And I said, well, I need to drop out. I go, I don't belong here. So he says, wait, like, so he pulled me to an office, what happened? I go, well, I'm struggling in this class, and this is what I was told. I go, if that is what, if, maybe I don't belong here. So I don't know what he did. I never learned what he did or not, but I knew that I was able to return back to class, and that I got a mentor, a teacher that worked with me, and I knew that how fragile, my journey was. I knew that how easily, I could have, moved another way, been a dropout and be part of the, the grind, just trying to do, barely survive, but I was, again, just lucky that I just, that somebody came to me and asked me.
Yeah.
Somebody could have just approved something, my paperwork, here it is, just leave.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But he actually stopped and asked me, and he made something happen behind the scenes that created the space for me to thrive, to overcome that. So I think about him, and I think about Lopez. When I graduated in my Mecha graduation, I gave my diploma to Dr. Lopez. I felt like he was, that his faith in me, and providing that the space for my parents to explore, their fears, because, it would have been, it was, and I know that when my parents did the trip, and the first one they went was to Cal.
Right.
And they did not have the best experience, because early on when they walked in, they saw a person naked. And so
that is very
so like, oh, maybe this is not the place.
Yes.
So but yeah, so it is, there's been, I recognize that it's taken a village. There was mentors that were not aware they were mentors that influenced my work. I believe that none of us do anything alone, so we're just trying to create spaces that instills those kind of values.
Absolutely.
And visions.
Interesante.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm really sorry you have to go through that. It's very unfortunate, because you absolutely belong there. We work so hard for places, and I think there's a lot of room, because that's still very it's very important, teacher professor training, but most over just humanity overall. But thank you so much for sharing that, Doctora. I don't know if you have a follow-up question or.
Sí, tell me, because you have all this experience in that believe that sí se puede, whatever you wanted to do. Entonces, ya te graduaste, ¿no? Ya te graduaste de David con honores. Entonces, cuando llegas, primero, ¿en qué te graduaste? Y segundo, ¿cómo fue? Porque en mi entender, bueno, uno se gradúa de la universidad con todos los problemas y todo eso, sobresaltando muchos obstáculos, pero cuando comienza la vida de trabajo, pues hay otros obstáculos de otro tamaño. Entonces, ¿cómo fue esa parte? Pues cuando te gradúas, ya viene esa mecha, todavía estaba el United Farm Worker, ¿qué hiciste? ¿Cómo fue eso?
Cuando estaba en la universidad, tuve la oportunidad de trabajar como nanny de una de las profesoras de la Universidad de Leyes, Martin Luther King Law School. Dr. Jill Peterson. So I was the nanny for her daughter, and so she introduced me to do like an internship at the law school, where I got to meet with Magda Perez from CRLA. My first job, as right after graduating, my degree was in history, 20th century history, Spanish literature, as well as Chicano studies. And I had a minor in political science. My first job was working with CRLA. I was only there for about 6 months. And then I was recruited by the IIF, the Industrial Areas Foundation. I worked with, Ernie Cortez and Larry Ferlazo. Larry Ferlazo was my supervisor and mentor. Okay. So that's where I learned, from a different lens about organizing. We know that, it was the IIF, training that Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, and Barack Obama, underwent. So I was brought back into that work, right after I started working for SVOC, Sacramento Valley Organizing Community, in Sacramento, working at 3 different counties, Sacramento, Yolo, and Solano. And in Solano, I worked in Dixon, Fairfield, and Vacaville, working with farm working communities where we brought housing to farm workers. And in Dixon, we started a project, La Esperanza, that it was first-time home ownership. Mm-hmm. And what it did is that it was a pilot program that we were able to sell the idea to Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Henry Cisneros at the time. Mm-hmm. So what it did is that it recognized Section 8 as income. So it allowed folks with fixed incomes, like disabilities or so forth, to see that voucher as income. And so families that otherwise wouldn't have qualified for first-time homeownership were able to qualify for housing. So we did 100% affordable. What we did to make that case is that we worked with Bank of America and Chase and others. To get low construction loans, for one, but also to get, ask their community development programs to commit funding, so that, for example, a family that only earns $18,000 total a year can qualify for a house. And how they were able to qualify is that we will come up with a deposit, a down payment for the $80,000 or whatever it is that they needed to be able to, and the goal is that their mortgage will not be no more than 30% of their income, whatever that was, whether it was their fixed income or so forth. So, I, that was in Dixon, La Esperanza. And then in Sacramento, we built housing that looked at different populations, we, as part of the IIF, we work with 20 plus, denominational congregations. So I learned to work with different faiths, from Buddhist, Protestant, Methodist, Baptist, Catholic, Pentecostal, so we learned to work with them and focus on and bring community based on issues, So in Sacramento, we also built housing, and we did it a little bit different as well. We had we were able to get an apartment from the city, and we renovated it, and we were able to do like rental housing. We incorporated an ADA, individual savings account. Mm-hmm. So the goal was to transition families from working families, from rental to homeownership. So we would, match their rent, so after 5 years, they have to move out. Mm-hmm. And they would take that money with them for first-time home ownership or for starting a business or for going to school. And we also in Sacramento did the one stops, you know, that everybody knows about them now, but you know, back then it was not, you know, it was just coming up. And the one stops, what it did is that it provided like incubator, like it brought, you know, so at this time we identified healthcare to be a sector of priority, which meant that, you know, there was an increase of there was a bright future. There was workforce was needed for this sector. This is the time where the hospitals were told that they can only have so many patients per nurse. So there was a short supply. So what we did is that we worked with hospitals and with American River College and Sacramento City College to provide curriculums in the healthcare. And we work with different churches, which already have membership, you know, so each, you know, at different churches, we created classes where we did from, you know, and we also work with like Kaiser, you know, Sutter, UC Davis, you know, and we got hiring agreements so that, you know, they would commit to hire our youth, our clients who are coming from our program, from a training that they participated in designing and that is accredited by one of the city colleges. So we were able to, you know, do a mobility, move people from the welfare lines to employment in a space that was safe for them, you know, where they go to pray. And that meant that some of those communities were also revitalized. Some of the congregations that were very poor and, you know, needing of help, we were able to get funding from SETA, Sacramento Employment Training Agency, from Child Action, and to renovate some of their open spaces so that they can have like the bathroom so that the children can go. Yeah. So we put together like childcare facilities. And also a classes so that the parents can bring their children and they also can receive instruction. They're taking care of the little ones while the parents are in class. And we did that at different, you know, churches. You know, so it was community driven, you know, and even the ask for funding and resources was community driven. And so, you know, from my experience as my father, my mother, and then my own experience, you know, of doing my own strike and just knowing the power of it and then being reinforced, you know, in my first job, really, you know, the power of community, the power that one person can have to change. There's someone that I know, Raquel Velasco, who has been also someone that I think about so often. Raquel Velasco is from Winters. You know, she's a single mother of three. Her son was going to Davis. He had to drop out. You know, she envisioned, you know, in one of my meetings my first meeting that I had with her as an organizer was like, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? Or like, you know, like what keeps you awake at night, you know, and just learning what moves them, you know, what keeps them awake at night, and then organizing around that. And then, you know, and then I would ask, well, what do we need to do now to get there, you know, for you to fulfill that promise? She identified housing as an area that she really wanted to work, you know, that she really wanted that for her kids. So we put together a plan. We've found, you know, attorneys. You know, we work with legal services of Northern California, Bill Kennedy at the time. And he, you know, had young attorneys that were doing research for us, identifying parcels that are owned by the city. We also learned that City of Winters have not been in compliance with their housing ordinance. They haven't built housing in over 50 years. So we, you know, when Raquel went and spoke in front of council, she had an attorney, she had a developer with idea, a vision of how this can be possible. And she basically also held the city council accountable. It's like, you haven't done nothing in 50 plus years. we are offering you a solution to be able to amend that. Otherwise you're going to find serious losses. And, so that's when we were able to acquire a parcel, right, as you're entering Winters, as you're leaving Davis. It's a development of 76 homes that, farm worker families were able to move in, as part of self-help enterprise. We partner with them. So they contributed with the building of their homes. But these are families that otherwise wouldn't have. And it began with one person, one dream, and then having series of one-on-one conversations in her house with other community members, bringing them all together, providing the tools that they needed. One person asking a farm worker to go and speak in front of council without being empowered, knowing that behind them, there's a team of experts. It's a team of people that are right behind. Raquel Velasco, we had an event in the Staples in LA, where the Lakers play. And we brought in, as part of the IIF throughout the state, over 2,000 people or more. And at this event, Al Gore came, he was like the main person. And it was Raquel who was given the opportunity to share that part of the meeting. So there was three mics, and Raquel was in the middle as the leader. This is her home. And when Vice President Al Gore comes, from behind, he stands behind her, like thinking that he was going to take her mic. And she says, "No, Mr. Vice President, this is my space. Yours is over there." And the community just went up and loud and everything. And because the power that it took imagine that scene, a farm worker coming from Winters, being in a space with over 2,000 plus people, just alone that we brought. Other IF organizations brought from all over the country, to be able to feel in her power, to be in her power, to do that. So I know what is possible. And what I see is that there's lack of will, the work seems so heavy, that people just don't want to try, and so the work that when we talk about being bold and brave, that's what I'm talking about. Being able to do the work that is needed to lift a community, and the work has to come from the ground up and is to be born and within community in order to be able to create that change that needs to happen. It cannot be coming from an organization, because and then it comes from a different lens. I'm coming to help you. Once that organization leaves, there's no tools left behind to address the other issues. So we're talking about real solutions. We're talking about empowering a community, being empowered to be able to address whatever issue comes ahead of them, and something that they, are able to mentor and teach others. So that is what has moved, the work that. So to me, those experiences, my parents, my experience, in Davis, my first week at Davis, how fragile it is, and just, and and the people along the way who make sure that I experience something, that allow me to see beyond what I was seeing in my, in my community. And then being able as an organizer to see someone come to their promise. That was like amazing. That was so powerful. That I just, when I see community, when I see people, I see that. I see what is possible, what they can do. Because Raquel, Spanish speaking, and this is in the midst where her son, was diagnosed with schizophrenia, dropped out of Davis, the pain or the struggle to get him there, to support him, and the pain of that, the mourning of that, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, to, you know, be out there in a open space with cameras, with her community looking up her, and for her to have the power to tell the vice president, you know, this is my home, you know, your mic is the one over there, you know. So yeah, that's what moves my work, you know.
It's very interesting. It's, if you let me, and I have another question, and I will let you continue with this, but I cannot avoid to ask this. You put in your example Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, y Barack Obama. The question is, did you know in person, talking with them, with all of them, and what they have different and what they have in common, those three characters?
You know, I was a child with when Cesar, so I never had the proximity to him. You know, Dolores Huerta, I work with her. I saw her last week. I'm going to see her on Friday or Saturday, you know. You know, so all three, Barack Obama, Dolores Huerta, Cesar Chavez, were trained by the IAF, the oldest grassroots organization in the country. You know, and that is a specific kind of training that is many people do not like it because it's very rigid. You know, it believes in the iron rule.
What is the name, not the acronym?
Industrial Aerial Foundation. They're based in Chicago. And you know, so like the iron rule is never doing for others what they can do for themselves. That is the iron rule. So I did not spoke for Raquel Velasco. You know, I did not, you know, and you know, being when, you know, so that is like being in those spaces as organizers, we were taught to be in the background. Even for council meetings, we're in the back, you know, all of the work is behind the scenes, getting them ready for the council meeting, you know, providing them with the experts, you know, the resources, you know, so they are able to, you know, walk feeling with a sense of confidence, you know, that they know, and that they have a team that can answer some of those more specific questions. Like if you're talking about financing, well, you know, or, you know, architecture design, you know, that they can refer to, you know. But as part of also the IIF is we believe that those directly impacted are the experts. And that is very much aligned. That's where Obama says, you know, organizing from behind, you know, like, or what is the term that he uses? Like, you know, leading from behind. Because that is part of the training that we got. It's like we're not supposed to be out holding a press conference. We're supposed to be out in the scene. So if we catch something like, oh, like we notice, we can pass a note to the, you know, like, okay, maybe you may want to add this, or guess who came in, you may want to recognize this person. But most of our work is done before, you know, and it is community who are on the front. You know, so those are the two things that are part of the IAF training, that I think that if you were to look at Dolores Huerta's work, as well as, you know, Cesar Chavez, you know, and Barack, you know, who said that, you know, leading from behind, that is his style. It's like, you know, and so yeah, so that is where, you know, I think that there's commonality in them and what influenced them in their work, you know, and it also has influenced my work, you know, and the kind of training that the IAF does is intense, very intense. My experience was not unique. My interview process was 3 months. And I had to go at 3 different counties literally, like I was holding a job at 3 different counties, meeting with 26 board members individually, one-on-one conversation with each one of them, attend house meetings, attend events, and being asked, when I went to meet with some of the leaders from the African American community, I was asked if I was willing to become Black, and and I think that there was some concerns, being that I am Latina, that I'm Mexicana, and it was 60% Latino, 40% Black, wondering like where my allegiance would be, and I think I made it very clear that that is not that I would align with where the truth lies, even if it hurts, so I after 3 months of literally working, because I was working those months, going from one meeting to another out of pocket, I was offered the job, and I was only one of 2 people, the lead organizer and myself, and we covered 3 different counties, and then when the 3rd person was added on board, she also went through an intense interview process. So it prepared me for the work that laid ahead. It certified, it solidified my commitment to the work. It threw me upfront situations that were pretty intense, and I think that it reaffirmed that, and it helped validate, keep my promise too, because I realized, like, okay, this is my promise that I made when I got my award, my acceptance. It's like, okay, this is my way for me too. And honestly, once you're an organizer, you're always an organizer. It's not a job, it becomes, it becomes a part of you, that even when you move out of organizing, which I did, I went to work for the Housing Authority in the Bay Area, because, as an organizer, you see bureaucratic organizations, institutions, it's like, why are they so slow? Why didn't they see problems? Why aren't they responding? Why, I needed to understand, the other side, so that I can return and be better at what I do. So I run programs for the housing authorities. I work for the Contra Costa County, running a program, doing workforce development for our returning citizens. I work with children and families that are unhoused in Alameda. I work in San Francisco in the Mission, with I work in Cabinet House in Oakland with our unhoused youth. And, so I was able to learn and understand. And when, the rhetoric of the administration, Trump's administration happened, I had been organizing already in Alameda, where I live, where my house is. I have been organizing around renters issues. So I work with the Attorney General and also, with legislators. And I ran I was the president for Alameda Renters Coalition, and I co-founded the Alameda Justice Alliance that included labor and the faith community and other social justice groups like Black Lives and progressives, to build the coalition to address the gentrification and displacement of people of color. And I also push legislation statewide, like no-cost evictions, the Tenant Protection Act, the Tenants Protection Act, the governor signed. So I was doing that, and I always have been organizing, because you cannot take that away. It's like no matter where you go, you're always, when you see something wrong, you'll find yourself. So I would last 2-3 years, and going to fix programs, and then until 2016. And then this is when I met Arturo, who we co-founded the Central Valley Empowerment Alliance. So Dr. Juan Lopez, who I mentioned earlier, I had spoken to one of my brothers, and I said, I have this vision that I want to do work in the Valley, but it needs to be different, because every time I go home, it doesn't change. It's the same thing, and it's just like busy work, but nothing changes. So I said, I told him I need to talk to Dr. Lopez, so he connected me with him. I met with him and his friend, excuse me, Dr. Aguilar, Bobby Aguilar, and I shared my vision. And they showed support. They were part of the first board that we had when we were building our organization. And one of the first things that they both said at the same time is like, if you're serious about doing this work, you need to work with Arturo Rodriguez, because he knows the communities, and he can help pave the way, So at the same time, that the same week, literally, maybe 2 days before my meeting with Dr. Lopez and Dr. Aguilar, I have received through Messenger a message from Arturo. Kind of weird, because Arturo didn't know any of them. And he basically said to me, like, I've been following your work in the Bay Area, and I want to learn about tenant organizing. Can you teach me? So I was hosting, my organization was hosting the first statewide assembly in California. We brought over 500 renters and organizers to Alameda. And we had, and I said, well, if you're serious, come to this thing. He showed up. He was one of the first ones that showed up. He showed up with his computer, his tablet, roll up his sleeves. How can I help? I said, well, record the event, see what, and I saw him working. I did not know that literally, like, he had already have exhausted. He quit his job. I think 2 years earlier, started organizing, wanted to be an organizer. He worked for the state, and he had a 6-figure salary and savings, and he quit his job to learn how to organize. When the time that I met him, he literally have experienced homelessness, himself, and literally he had to panhandle to get money for gas. So after he was there, I told him, okay, you made it here. I see you're serious about it. So I'm going to be coming down to the Valley, at this weekend. I want you to schedule meetings in 3 different communities at 2 different counties, at least, so when I showed up, we met in Visalia, where we had about 20 people in a restaurant, and I'm just telling them what I'm envisioning. Dr. Lopez Aguilar and both of them were there, and other leaders. And then we went to Kingsburg, in Fresno County, and he had leaders that, grew up as part of the UFW, whose parents were like, and then we went to Bakersfield, where we met other folks who are experiencing, hardships. And so I said, okay, so he's able, because I'm organizing under the IIF, a leader is someone that can bring at minimum 10 people at a given meeting.
Mhm.
So I noticed that he was able to bring 10 people. And then I said, okay. And then after he did that, I said, okay, I'm going to be coming back next month at this weekend. I want you to show me what moves your work. I want to see what triggers you, what moves you. So he took me to the Sequoia National Monument that was being compromised, that they were talking about downsizing, for logging under the Trump administration, and I got to see what moves his work. And then we had the conversation about, because that would have meant me moving from the Bay Area or doing something, So I had the conversation with him, and I told him, if we're going to do this, we have to be different. We need to be true no matter how hard it is. Even if it means, we need to operate like we just have right now. Because if we get caught up about, funding and if we let those fears, and then it's going to compromise our work. So our first town hall on housing was that poster that you see, the article. So for that one, that's the first one. The first one that we had is the town hall and education, when we brought the state superintendent Tony Thurman, who is a friend of mine, and he came down and we talked about what it means to rural communities. He met with Dr. Lopez and Dr. Aguilar and other leaders in the community, met with some parents, and what came out of that is he allocated $500,000 for literacy in farm working communities. Mm-hmm. But most importantly is that he was able to, hire people that are coming from, farm working communities, or that were undocumented, that, have that lens. That was our first town hall on 2017, April 2017. That one's a year later. That one is in Farmersville. And that one, we brought the Attorney General Rob Bonta. We had the Tenants Together from San Francisco. We brought, you may know her, Paula Laverde, Rent Board Commissioner for Berkeley. And then we have Red Cloud Emmanuel from Tule River Indian Reservation. Mm-hmm. And we had the mayor of Farmersville, where we were hosting the event. And we had full capacity that the fire department, the chief came to see. People were standing, people were outside. It was about 150 people that came for our first town hall on housing. Yeah. And, that led for Farmersville to get a developer that is willing to invest in affordable housing. That kicked off our campaign for, the preventing the evictions that were in house. But yeah, so it's like, how, just, so that is, and then another thing that happened for us that I think changed the how our work and how, we experienced a fire. The building next to us had the only grocery store burned down, power line short circuited, and destroyed the panaderia, La Potosina, and the hair salon, and then left 12 families homeless, unhoused. One, if you go outside, you see a trailer. Yeah. We actually purchased the trailer for $7, and we gifted to the family that lives there. So we had the owner of the Adams Market, a Yemeni, he was actually on the same day that the fire happened. He just arrived at 3:00 in the morning from Yemen. He had gone to Yemen to get the passport information for his kids and his wife. He was ready to bring his 7 kids and his wife to here. And at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there was a spark on the pine tree because of faulty power line, and within 30 minutes, everything was gone. And we learned that the owners didn't have insurance, so they were about to lose their property because they needed to clean it up. So we stepped up and we applied for funding to clean it up. To make sure we don't want it, otherwise it would still be there, or the county would have taken the property away from Anise. Our own facility was damaged. We had a pantry. We have so every Friday we have food distribution. We came to the last one. So we were at that day, we were having an event where 400 youth were coming to get their back to school backpacks. They were going to get 5 outfits. We had over $100,000 worth of merchandise, and they were going to be selecting 5 outfits for school. There was a line of over 100 youth already waiting. We have 10 vendors or more. We have a COVID vaccine event happening, food distribution, and it just burned, So I realized that I could no longer, kind of be part-time, right? Like leaving the Bay Area and coming on the weekends or on vacations. That's how I spend my vacations, even as a child, organizing, and so my house is still in the Bay Area. I am a delegate for the Attorney General in my other hat. It is important because it gives me access to resources that we need here. We just took, 20 youth, 25 youth to the Oakland Zoo. A friend of mine who is the school board member for the city of Alameda works there as the vice president of curriculum, and she has gifted us VIP access to visit the zoo. So it offers opportunities for our youth, just like Dr. Lopez offered them to me, to see something more than what their community is. And we are creating a space so that our parents also see what is possible. So we find ourselves doing a lot of things, but definitely the work that I do, is grounded on lived experience, is grounded, just, being reaffirmed of the power of a community being organized, and doing from a place of, of power, in the, that, is the self-determination. And we celebrate on June 12th, we celebrate the Philippines Self-Determination Day. We're very intentional about what that means for each one of us, and trying to reaffirm, whatever that may look like, so it's yeah. I just went on and on. Sorry.
No. It's let me flabbergasted totally. Oh my God, this woman is doing so much. So, still doing things. I love it. Thank you for that. Continue.
I want to touch up on a little bit on your vision. You mentioned you would come back home and you would see things wouldn't change. So what was your vision for the Central Valley Empowerment Alliance, and how did this vision expand? Because you mentioned you guys work a lot with housing, but you're also, you mentioned the COVID vaccine distribution, and reading online, I saw your Instagram, the Ferias de Salud. So how does your vision expand to all these health efforts that you're also working on?
So, it's we are an organization. So I align with the IIF. We're not an affiliate of the IIF, but align with the IIF. Is that a community that is mobilized can a person or a community have within the power to change. the way, and address inequities. So our work has been defined by community and what is of like what keeps you awake at night. Those going back to those questions. What keeps you awake at night? Well, I'm being evicted, Well, my children this summer, I have to work, and my children, they're by themselves, and it's when they get in trouble. So that's where Lupus Promise comes in. Lupus Promise came in when we had a young 16-year-old commit suicide. She came to us, she has been sex trafficked since she was 11. Human trafficked since she was 11 years old and had been unhoused. And her mother has been trying to find her. And, within hours, Arturo was able to identify where she was. And she came to us when we just have opened the center, maybe a couple of months before, and it was just 2 people, just, no funding, no programming, just open it up and see, like, if you build it, they'll come. And she came to us, and she was a minor, and so CPS came and took her, and she was able to connect with her mom briefly, and she was sent to a group home in Bakersfield, away from her community. And then we learned that she committed suicide by hanging, and we were planning her quinceañera. She was buried in her quinceañera dress that we were able to get for her. So we made a promise as a community. There were some elected folks that came, County Supervisor Macari and community came, and we actually did a circle and we held hands. And we made an oath that under our watch, we would do everything possible so that we don't lose another young person, because, feeling alone and isolated and dealing with big issues and nowhere to go for help. So that's where our Lupus Promise became, part of our programming. When the fire destroyed the warehouse, our warehouse is our garage, and you've seen it. Yeah. We decided to rebuild it and give it a different life. So we named it Lupus Promise, and it stands for leadership, unity, power, and education. But we wanted to, remember her, that her life mattered, that her life, and she still gets, is giving. Absolutely. So that moved our work, but our age campaign is moved by individual, and a community behind it. So my vision was having, organizing a community that is not afraid to tackle the big problems and to go to the root of the problem. There were consequences when we placed a lawsuit. The plaintiff, Chendo, he was arrested. There were threats, that they experienced. There has been consequences, for there's, if you were to go outside, you saw our pride flag, you saw there was graffiti on it. That's just an example of some of the, things that we experience, but there's others that are, more intentional, that trying to deny us, funding opportunities to do the work. What is interesting is that, we sued the sheriff, but we've been working with the sheriff department, in our programming. We have been, they come and they help us with our events, and they have been supported, and that is the kind of organizing that envision that I see, because coming from the Bay Area, that is, I see and have participated in the progressive, ideology. But I also believe that it cannot be this mentality like, this way or burn it all, let it all go down. because when people are talking like that, they want it all or nothing, and they're coming from a lens of privilege. That is my observation. A space where you're not the one who's worried about your housing, where you're going to sleep, what are you going to eat, or about children. You're coming from a space is that this is not impacting me. So and so forth. And I think that is the wrong way of organizing, of mobilizing, because that is not, you will not engage the people that you want to, so our kind of organizing, Dr. Robin Rodriguez from the UC Davis Belusan Center, she has described our work as radical love, and I love it. Our work is moved by that love for community, and we're not afraid to tackle the big issues and place lawsuits, against the power line, against the sheriff, if that was what it was needed. But we also leave the door for working together on other projects. We are about holding our allies equally accountable, and when we become afraid of holding ourselves and our allies accountable, that is when we find ourselves in this status quo, saying, nothing changes because nobody's willing to push it, so we do, we're educators, we are organizers, we do it, and our expression is radical love.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
The question, Anaís?
Yes, I had a question and I just forgot it. But I think what you're saying is, I love it. I also love radical love. It's a term I've never heard, and I think it's something beautiful. Usted tiene una pregunta en lo que se me viene otra vez la que iba a...
Sí, sí. Fascinante todo lo que has dicho, todo lo que has dicho, Mari. Y realmente comparto muchísimo, porque cuando uno viene de working family, cuando uno ha pasado cosas, uno sabe de qué se está hablando, ¿no? Y realmente es increíble. Yo quería preguntarte porque trajiste con ese radical love, pero estás hablando de housing, estás hablando de, por supuesto, de los padres, ¿verdad? De cómo ayudar a los padres para que tengan una casa, cómo es. Pero también, yo quisiera saber qué es lo que hace cuál es tu mayor trabajo con los jóvenes que ustedes están ayudando en su comunidad. ¿De qué se trata ese trabajo? O sea, hablo de los jóvenes específicamente.
Sí. Tenemos varios proyectos con los jóvenes. Durante el verano tenemos Lupus Promise. Es programación comenzó de las 11 a las 4, pero los jóvenes llegaban a las 10, 10:30 y se iban hasta las 6. So estaban aquí con nosotros casi todo el día. Durante el día había programación. Teníamos, tratamos de crear como una familia, una comunidad. Los llevamos para que tuvieran experiencias diferentes. Durante el verano fuimos a la playa, cual para muchos era la primera vez que fueron a la playa. Fuimos al zoológico, fuimos a Los Ángeles, a una convención donde conocieron al Attorney General, conocieron a la Secretary, a Cheryl Weber, conocieron a Fiona Mall, State Treasurer, Mia Cohen, State Controller, conocieron a Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Congressman Adam Schiff, and we have an event that we're this weekend where they're going to be meeting Senator Alice Padilla. So the idea is, to bring people close to them so that they know that they're not so far off. there's this concept about 6 degrees of the separation, that we're all interconnected. I want it to be so that it's only 1 degree they have direct access to. Creating the opportunity for them to advocate for themselves and using those spaces to advocate for themselves. So, as part of Lupa's Promise, we create, we're working with Dr. Robin Rodriguez to put together an experiential learning curriculum where we bring, our rich farm worker movement to the present. We bring elders and we incorporate as part of the programming, for a couple of things. Many of our youth do not know their history, do not know that the fields negotiated around Poplar are those that Dolores Huerta negotiated. The first contract was those around Poplar. They don't know that. They don't know that Larry Ilyang lived 10 miles away. They don't know that. They don't know that Najib Tafala, the first Yemeni, and he was killed by the current sheriff, organizer, worked on, and his last letter was to organize in Poplar. They don't know that. I think that when they know of this rich history, there's a sense of pride. There's a sense of, belonging, knowing that others paved the way, that there's rich history, so it is important, that they know this rich history. It is important that, this is Arturo Rodriguez.
Arturo, un placer verte de nuevo.
Listo.
And so it is important that they know that rich history. It is important, that they know that they have that they belong in that. And what we're taught often is that because we are considered as a community to be immigrants, that there was no work that was done before us, that it was not earned when others have paved the way for us, when we are paving the way for others. So having this sense of connection is important.
And one of the ways sorry, I'm back here, but hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
We've learned that they've purposely erased a lot of the rich culture that would have given us a lot more identity, which Mari probably has talked about, but we are working with UC Davis in capturing some of that oral history. We're losing it at a higher rate of speed as our elders go make the journey. But we're doing our part as best we can to capture some of that history so that we can have that identity to show. I think part of the way that they have combated us organizing our communities by erasing our history, by showing, it didn't take one generation for us to completely forget about what has happened here in Poplar. One generation, and that history was lost because we didn't document it right, or the people documenting it didn't think it was important to include, and purposely changed the story, the narrative, or just ignored our part of it. So
yeah, so just to add to what Arturo is saying is that one of the things that we found is that there's key moments in the farm worker movement that happened here that has not been talked, that there's not in the books. There was right after the 1965 contract was negotiated, our community was redlined. The Tulare County General Plan it identified communities, 15 rural communities, 13 of the 15 communities as communities with no future.
No.
So what that meant, being communities with no future, that meant that there was disinvestment. Developers were not encouraged to build, to develop. Yeah, so it was, so that is not being told, that is not being talked about, and so we were, we've been instrumental. We've been instrumental in lifting that history. So in our work with Dolores, with UC Bulusan Center, with the is that we're going to have 2 fellows that we want to capture the Filipino experience, the farm worker experience of the Filipino, because we have a little bit more of the Mexicano, but we have nothing of the Filipino experience, and we still have elders among us that were present, that can give light to that. They have photos, they have letters, and we want to document that. So we were able to, as part of our Lupus Promise program, which is your question, that we're going to be bringing 2 fellows from UC Davis that are going to come and teach our young folk how to capture that history, how to interview, how, how to, look at those photos from a different lens now, and then to see the final product, when this is in a study or in a book or something like that. Because what I was told, is that history is made, is that what those who write it, so we want to, we want to make sure that the history that reflects what actually transpired in our communities.
So here's an example. This is where it all kind of started. I was listening to a speech that Cesar was doing
I can read it one more time.
at UCLA. And 1972, Cesar was giving a speech at UCLA, the lettuce boycott. And this is the first question they asked as soon as Cesar. Yeah, she could, as long as she can hear it.
Mire, doctora, para que escuchemos este speech.
Sí.
And it's just, and he just finished giving his 20-minute speech.
There is a microphone off to my left if you want to address questions to Cesar. Please sit down so that people in the back can see.
This is at UCLA. So.
Cesar, I understand there's been problems of violence in Poplar. Can you please comment on it? Yes, we're under a tremendous strain in Poplar, California, near Delano. We have a strike there with the Buttes Gas and Oil Company, which owns the White River Farms, ranch known before as the Shenley Farm, the first contract that we got. We've been harassed by the company agents and their friends and their relatives. Last Sunday, about 80 drunken men came and shot about 80 rounds of gunfire into the office, broke all the windows, came in and beat up 3 women working in the office. They destroyed the files and the desks, and we took us 2.5 hours to get the sheriffs to come there. When they came, they wouldn't arrest anyone. Right now, there are about 40 to 50 drunken men every single day, no further than a block from our office, trying to destroy us with threats of killing us, with threats of bombing the office and shooting in almost daily. And we cannot get the sheriff in Kern County, Sheriff Wiley, or the district attorney of Tulare County in Visalia to make the arrest. They know who they are. We know who they are. We have their pictures. Our guys know who the attackers were. And the sheriff and the district attorney refuse to bring charges. We're asking all of our friends here who would like to do it, please call the district attorney in Visalia, California, Tulare County, and get on him. Tell him you'd like to see those men arrested before they killed someone. It's really important to get that help from you.
Okay.
Can you make a comment on who you support?
So that, like, and what
the president's views on Proposition 22 are?
Allowed me to start asking people questions in town. And finally, I had a few who are already older men, and I guess at the time, there was a lot of things that happened. Soon after this was the white flight that happened in Poplar. This used to be the fire station. During that time, this used to be the fire station, right? All white fire station, obviously. Soon after, the Filipinos and Mexicans and Yemenis got together, and the white people said, enough is enough, and they left. And so the county found that even though the community of Poplar grew, in population, it wasn't the right kind of people, so they closed emergency services. And so it wasn't until we opened this place back up here where we're sitting that this building has seen people of color.
Qué interesante.
Yeah.
Es increíble. Y usted tiene mucha razón. De hecho, muchos de los movimientos que están ocurriendo en Latinoamérica, sobre todo, yo soy venezolana y en Venezuela, después de Chávez, pues comenzaron a ver, bueno, y entonces se escribió eso de la historia que conocemos, incluso en nuestros libros de grado, pues lo escribieron pues la gente que se cree vencedores, que se adueñó de todo y ellos hicieron la historia como mejor les convenía, eliminando mucha gente que había trabajado tanto. Nosotros, se dice que la historia, incluso desde la colonia, la escribieron los vencedores. Entonces la historia de los vencidos, pues nunca fue.
So, do we live as subjects? Vivimos como sujetos que no somos parte de los vencedores, no somos americanos todos.
Sí, no somos americanos, incluso Latinoamérica no es parte de América, porque siempre escuchamos y que América para los americanos, y resulta que todos somos americanos. Pues entonces, comenzando desde ahí, se ve que hay una...
Si seguimos con eso, está entendido que pues la verdad es en contra nosotros que no somos de...
Bueno, déjeme hilar. Entonces, yo quería decir que eso que ustedes están haciendo, comparto mucho la historia con la juventud y con todo eso, y que precisamente aquí quiero incorporar algo que también nos estamos viendo a nosotros mucho. Ese sentido de pertenencia cuando muchos latinos van a la universidad, se quiebra. Hay muchos elementos que hacen que la gente, y aún en nuestros países, piense que la universidad no es para nosotros si venimos de abajo, ¿verdad? Pensemos que la universidad no es para nosotros y que no cabemos en ese espacio. Por una u otra razón nos hacen sentir eso. Yo también vengo de una familia trabajadora, donde la primera en ir a la universidad, una historia común, no es que es muy especial, pero es una historia común a cómo se desarrollan los acontecimientos. Y por eso hemos planificado este trabajo que estamos tratando de hacer, si los niños me dejan. Estamos tratando de hacer este trabajo. Y parte de eso es ayudar, es primero honorar, como ustedes dicen, hay que sacar a la luz, que todo el mundo sepa y vuelva a saber y vuelva a conocer, y que nunca olvide la historia de toda la gente que hizo posible esto. Eso es el corazón de nuestro trabajo en este momento. Y claro, por eso estamos entrevistándolo a ustedes, y por eso también tenemos la misión de hacer, y aquí viene una cosa que nos interesa, nos tiene muy entretenidos en este momento. Se están iniciando las clases, vienen la gente de los freshmen en CAD, y hay muchos movimientos de conservadores y muchos movimientos de gente que quiere saber. El departamento de Chicano Study, de Ethnic Study, todo eso quieren quitarlo. Las bibliotecas están haciendo horrores en la universidad.
Déjate explico un poco, ¿verdad? De muchos de nosotros muchos de mis amigos, de pocos que salimos de aquí del pueblo, en cuanto vamos a la universidad y nos graduamos, vienen para atrás, parece que los mandamos a que destaparan los ojos a las realidades, porque ya comienzan a estar incluidos y se olvidan de dónde vinieron, ¿no? O se dan la falsa entendimiento que, pues ya fui a la universidad y ahora ya sé cómo corre todo, pero en la realidad son más fáciles para engañar y que los sigan opresando. Entonces,
que los otros no saben, la gente de la comunidad no sabe nada, lo que sabemos somos nosotros, ¿no? Esa es una neoliberal, una clase de conciencia neoliberal que se le instila en la mente de los muchachos.
Y sí, entonces, para mí está una meta que para mí yo tengo es para poder enseñar los gaps que faltan dentro de lo que aprendemos en la universidad y dentro de cómo funciona de veras el gobierno aquí. Y no es nada de lo que lees en el libro, no. Hay partes de perdida cuando estamos haciendo juntas para tapar el ojo al macho, pero lo demás, todas las decisiones de veras se toman de otra manera.
Y bueno, yo puedo decir que sí hay cosas buenas que nos enseñan. O sea,
Sí.
vamos a rescatar
There's
eso.
a lot of public administration.
De hecho,
Yeah.
aquí tenemos una alumna graduada de Davis y entonces, y no perdió la esperanza, ¿no? Entonces, yo sí creo que pero tenemos que también aprender a usar esa herramienta para defendernos, para legitimarnos, ¿verdad? No como dice para aplastarnos, para continuar en el orden. Y de verdad que desde el corazón, muchísimas gracias por todo eso que nos ha dicho. No sabe cuánto lo aprecio.
No,
Cuánto.
gracias. Gracias. Y ustedes por su tiempo y el interés de aprender, de saber de lo que está pasando aquí, de poder documentar eso, porque si no está escrito por nosotros, no, la historia no va a estar. Yeah.
Y a eso nos comprometemos, a escribirlo, a difundirlo, no como un acto, no vendiéndonos nosotros como actores, sino haciendo visibilizar eso, es lo que nos interesa. O sea, aquí no hay más nada, aquí reconozcan que hay una población latina que se levantó, que hizo historia, que continúa haciendo historia, y eso es nuestro argumento y es nuestra pasión.
Yeah.
Eso es. Entonces, bueno, gracias Arturo, gracias, gracias Mari, y muchas gracias Anaí.